Here we go. Once again, fair use.
Alex O'Connor just exposed a massive, and I mean massive, problem for Protestant apologetics, and even William Lane Craig doesn't seem to have a good answer to this. It's about the group appearances, like the 500 witnesses in 1 Corinthians 15. Christians love pointing to these as powerful evidence for the resurrection, and there's good reason to do that, right? It's like the more witnesses that you have, the better the evidence. But here's the issue. If group appearances prove the resurrection, what do you do with Marian apparitions like Fatima or Zaitun? Tens of thousands, sometimes millions of people witness these events, including skeptics, including journalists, and including non-Christians. Are Protestants actually ready to accept these miracles, or is this the double standard that finally breaks their theology entirely? In this video, we're going to find out. So Alex O'Connor recently highlighted this.
Now you have to understand where he's going with this. The Roman Catholics do this a lot, because as I start going in on this video, you can see he's already made a dividing line, that there's something wrong with Protestantism and Roman Catholicism is the one true way. All right. So before people start saying that, oh, it seems like that you're trying to divide and separate us, he's making a clear distinction between us and them. Let's get back to this video.
Inconsistency. And as I say, William Lane Craig doesn't seem to really have a good answer to this. It's honestly surprising. But let's first hear from Alex.
Remember, sometimes groups do claim to see visions, such as various apparitions of Mary, or the Roman Emperor Constantine's vision of a cross of light in the sky, which may have been seen by his whole army as well. The source isn't clear. Look at this image. This is a picture of a crowd in Fatima, Portugal in 1917. This crowd, many more than 500 in number, were witness to the so-called miracle of the sun. A prophecy by 3 shepherd children said that the Virgin Mary would perform a miracle on the 13th of October, causing this large crowd to gather on that day. And the miracle happened. Testimonies from the members in the crowd were published in the newspaper. They claimed to have seen the sun dancing in the sky, zigzagging around, and even advancing towards the earth, all for 10 minutes. So a large crowd witnessing a prophesied miracle, and we actually know who saw it and precisely what they saw. We even have their direct testimony. Does Wes Huff believe in this Catholic miracle? Do you? And if not, why not?
Exactly. Today we're...
All right, and we're going to get into the story of Fatima later. All right, because I got another video. We're gonna play exactly what led up to that in another video.
We're diving into Alex's argument, Craig's response, and then why Protestants desperately need to come up with some kind of response to this argument. In the clip that we just watched, Alex raises a very interesting point. If group appearances like the 500 in 1 Corinthians 15 are good evidence for the resurrection, what about other documented group visions like Fatima? Let's actually talk about Fatima. So, fascinating story. In 1917, over 70,000 people gathered in Fatima, Portugal, after 3 children claimed that the Virgin Mary would perform a miracle at a specific time on a specific day. Among the crowd were skeptics, journalists, and people of all beliefs. The question is, what happened next? On the day the children predicted, witnesses reported the sun dancing in the sky, a phenomenon so extraordinary that even secular newspaper covered it the next day. It's one of the craziest stories you're ever going to read. And this wasn't just like 1 or 2 people, it was tens of thousands. Many of them were skeptics. Many described something they believed could only be supernatural. Add the prediction by the children that Mary would perform a miracle on that day, and you've got phenomena that can't be easily dismissed as like a fluke of nature. But Fatima isn't even...
Okay, so I don't want you guys to miss anything that he's saying. He's saying that because a bunch of people said that they saw something does not dismiss this quote-unquote miracle. That's what he's saying. That since we had a bunch of people that made the same claim, that makes it true. Because that's where he's going with this. He's not coming out and saying it, but he's kind of having I don't want to use the word crafty, but he's having an interesting way of formulating his words. But that's basically what he's saying. So I want y'all to hear
Even
that.
the most impressive example, between 1968 and 1971, millions of people in Zaitun, Egypt, mostly Muslims, reported seeing a woman-like illuminated figure above a Coptic church. The witnesses, both Muslim and Christians, immediately recognized the image as Mary. These apparitions weren't fleeting. They happened repeatedly, were photographed, investigated by secular religious authorities, and even broadcast live. If you're looking for a group appearance...
Hey, yo, that better not be a Photoshop. Let me bring that back just a little bit. I don't know. That better not be Photoshop. I'm going to be quiet. I'm just going to let it ride. Because I can say, I can have a lot to say about this, but we just going to talk.
Secular religious authorities, and even broadcast live. If you're looking for a group appearance, this is definitely it. But here's the question. If group appearances are good evidence for the resurrection, aren't they even better evidence for Marian miracles? After all, Fatima and Zaytun had more witnesses, tens of thousands or even millions, and more contemporaneous documentation, like tens of thousands of eyewitnesses, photographs, and even news reports. So how do Protestants respond to this? Let's hear from William Lane Craig.
I'm really curious your take. How do we respond
All right, now pay attention. This is the part that's beef.
to group visions of the Virgin Mary?
I think here Alex is drawing our attention to a very important point, namely the antecedent beliefs of persons which would dispose those persons towards certain experiences. Like Alex, I am skeptical of the Marian mass appearances. The person who experiences Marian visions are typically Roman Catholics predisposed toward belief in.
Basically, what he's saying is that if you guys are willing to believe in the 500 that saw Jesus resurrected, if you're willing to believe that story says that that is proof of the resurrection, then you got to believe people who say that they encountered Mary. So therefore, you got to believe in the Virgin Mary, which go down this whole rabbit hole. And so now you got to, you know, if you're willing to believe that or accept that, then now you must accept praying to Mary. Then you got to accept the bodily assumption and the perpetual virginity and all of that stuff. So it's just like they just keep piling stuff on, you know. So that's the hook right there. So if we can just kind of just throw that bait out there and just kind of slowly reel you in, you know, next thing you know, you'll end up being Roman Catholic. You know, you'll end up praying to Mary. That's, to be honest, that's kind of like the line of progression of what I'm seeing, especially from how Roman Catholics argue. All right. But here we go. Hold on. Let me back it up just a little bit.
Marian visions are typically Roman Catholics predisposed toward belief in the Virgin Mary. And so for exactly the same reason, I wouldn't lay too much emphasis on the appearance to the 500 brethren, who were probably all Christians. It's interesting that Paul refers to them as brethren, 500 brethren. So these people were probably already Christian believers and therefore predisposed to believe in Jesus' resurrection. And so I wouldn't lay too much emphasis on this. As you said, Sean, it's a piece in the puzzle. It's part of the cumulative case.
Dr. Craig's response here, as much as I love him to death. Let's just say that his response here is less than satisfying. All right. He suggests that Marian miracles like Fatima aren't credible because the witnesses were predisposed to believe in the Virgin Mary. But this explanation falls apart for at least two reasons. I've already kind of mentioned one of them. So first, not everyone at Fatima was predisposed to believe. Among the 70,000 were skeptics, journalists, and even atheists. These people weren't exactly looking for a miracle, yet they all reported seeing similar extraordinary phenomena. And second, predisposition doesn't explain Zaytun at all. In Zaytun, thousands of Muslims, people with no cultural or theological predisposition to Marian apparitions, reported seeing the Virgin Mary appear above a Coptic church. What's crazy is that the first two witnesses of the apparition were Muslims. Like, these appearances were documented with photos, eyewitness testimonies, and even live broadcasts. In fact, at one point, the secular authorities cut the power in the area surrounding the church, and yet the appearances kept occurring. So if Fatima included skeptics and Zaytun...
Oh, what we gonna do with that? Uh-oh. He might be onto something, y'all. I don't know. He might be onto something. Today might be the day where I stop being my own pope. Because he said that there was a Marian apparition that showed up in a predominantly Muslim area. And the apparition was just showing up. It was on top of the mosque, just like we saw. They got pictures. They got pictures of it. It was lit up. They cut the power, and the apparition kept showing up. I don't know, y'all. This might be the day. This might be the day that maybe I just stop being my own pope and just come up under the authority of the Roman Catholic Church. But let's try to get through this real quick. We only got like a couple more minutes left on this. All right, fair use.
Involved tens of thousands of Muslims. Dr. Craig's response here actually collapses completely. These appearances did not only involve individuals that were predisposed to seeing a miracle. Dr. Craig is actually wrong here. So where does that leave us? Either everyone actually saw something, or else thousands were hallucinating the same thing. But Dr. Craig has argued extensively in his work that group hallucinations just don't occur.
Finally, just a third example that is difficult for the hallucination hypothesis to explain would be the appearance to the 500 brethren. Here you have 500 people, most of whom whom are still alive at the time of Paul's writing. He knows them personally because he knows some have died in the interim. And all of them claim to have seen Jesus risen from the dead. Now, again, mass hallucinations are extremely rare because as projections of your own mind, they are only in the mind of the percipient, and therefore you cannot have literally a mass hallucination. It would have to be really a mass coincidence of all these people hallucinating Jesus at the same time. Now, that's not impossible, but again, when you look at the diversity of the appearances, this just begins to strain the hallucination hypothesis, I think, to the breaking point.
Dr. Craig is absolutely right about this. Group hallucinations, especially on this scale, don't happen. But that creates an even bigger problem. If these Marian apparitions weren't hallucinations, what were they? The first Muslim witnesses actually told us they were an apparition of the Virgin Mary. So let's recap really quickly. Protestants rightly point to group appearances like the 500 witnesses or the appearance to the 12 in 1 Corinthians 15 as evidence for the resurrection. It's very good evidence. But Marian apparitions like Fatima and Zaitun involve even more witnesses, more extensive documentation, and often people who are not predisposed to believe. Protestants seem to be stuck in a very serious dilemma here. Either they dismiss these miracles, weakening their own argument for the resurrection, or they accept them and face the fact that Catholicism or Orthodoxy offers a more consistent explanation. So what option?
Ooh, woo. I don't know. I think he got us on the ropes, y'all. If we can read in the Bible and we can say, hey, listen, the evidence for Christ's resurrection is the 400 to 500 people that saw him after he had been resurrected. Therefore, us as Protestants, our dilemma, thousands of people, tens of thousands, possibly even millions of people who have saw Mary in certain parts of history and you know, in this lifetime, there's been possibly millions of people who saw Mary, but we don't believe that. So why don't we believe these apparitions of Mary? Or let's just say that we do believe that they're apparitions of Mary and that those are valid. Why don't we stop and just say, hey, man, let's just become Roman Catholic. There's the evidence. If we believe in the resurrection of Christ, why don't we believe in Mary, who's allegedly appeared to different groups of people at different times, especially unbelievers?
Should we take? Well, let's actually let Protestant scholar and apologist Dr. Sean McDowell suggest an answer for us.
Now, if I understand Alex's reasoning correctly, he's saying, if we have this appearance of the 500, then we would need to adopt these Catholic visions of Mary. And since many people don't accept those, we should question the 500. I would say, well, all right, if we accept the 500 and be consistent in his eyes and accept the Marian apparitions, then you and I, Bill, would just need to maybe consider becoming Catholic.
Uh-oh, hold up. Sean McDowell, a Protestant Christian, told William Lane Craig that, hey, maybe we should consider becoming Roman Catholic. Pete, we had a Protestant that said that. But is that what Sean McDowell was saying? Much respect to capturing Christianity. It seems like he was being crafty and deceptive because he didn't play the rest of that video. And if you actually listen to what's being said, because we're going to pull it up and we're going to listen to it real slow. Y'all know I'm not smart. I make content like this for people such as myself. People who are on the short bus, but sitting to the back of the short bus. I'm not ashamed to say that I sit on the back of the short bus. So I know I'm not smart. Just so happened I have the video pulled up. Now, this is the entire video. Now, of course, I'm not going to play the whole video, but we're going to start at that part of where capturing Christianity abruptly cut off. And we're going to see if Sean McDowell and William Lane Craig are kind of pondering becoming Roman Catholics because of the Marian apparitions. All right, I think I got this set up exactly where I want to play it. All right, fair use.
Visions of Mary. And since many people don't accept those.
Oh, hold on. We almost there. Let me see if I can go back a few seconds.
From the dead. This is not a natural. We're necessitated.
All right, here we go.
By believing in Jesus rising from the dead. This is not a natural evolution of antecedent Judaism.
Now, if I understand Alex's reasoning correctly, he's saying,
Now remember, we're going to go through this slow. Okay. Now, again, he is responding to not capturing Christianity, the Roman Catholic we just played. He's not responding to him. He's responding to the atheist, because the atheist was talking about Wes Huff. And he's basically saying, if you're a Protestant and you believe in the resurrection of Christ, based on the 500 eyewitnesses, why don't you believe in the Marian apparitions, where tens of thousands, maybe even quote unquote millions of people saw? All right.
You know, if we have this appearance of the 500, then we would need to adopt these Catholic visions of Mary. And since many people don't accept those, we should question the 500. I would say, well, all right, if we accept the 500 and be consistent in his eyes and
okay, so you hear that. So Sean McDowell is responding, and I'm going to go back just a couple of seconds.
accept, well, all right, if we accept the 500
Okay, so listen good.
and be consistent in his eyes and accept.
And be consistent in the eyes of the atheist. So he's basically saying, for the sake of argument, let's just concede to what the atheist is saying and being quote unquote consistent according to the atheist. Hypothetically, what else do you got to say, Brother Sean?
Accept the Marian apparitions, then you and I, Bill, would just need to maybe consider becoming Catholic. But
And that's where he cut it out at. That's where the video ended. Capturing Christianity, and he didn't play the rest of this.
the Marian apparitions, then you and I, Bill, would just need to maybe consider becoming Catholic. But he would
Yes.
need to completely shift his worldview and open it up to the supernatural.
So he's basically saying that, okay, Mr. Atheist, if you believe Protestants are not being consistent, you guys accept the resurrection of Christ, but you don't accept the Marian apparitions. Sean is saying, okay, if you think that we're going to try to if we need to be consistent on that, the only problem that us as Protestants would have is worrying about becoming Roman Catholic. Not saying that they should consider becoming Roman Catholic. He's saying that according to what the atheist is arguing, the biggest problem that we would have as Protestants is becoming Roman Catholic. But you, Mr. Atheist, Alex O'Connor, if you're going to be consistent and hold yourself to the same consistency, then that means that you got to open yourself up to the belief of the supernatural, which you don't believe. So basically what he's telling Alex O'Connor is, you have a bigger problem than we do. But since atheists are not consistent, and what atheism is a bunch of inconsistency and incoherency, then Sean McDowell's argument is just that, well, you can't, your worldview is already inconsistent. So you can't hold us to a level of consistency when your whole worldview is inconsistent anyway. So to try to hold us to a quote unquote double standard, your standards is all over the place. You can't even begin to imagine what a standard is because you don't even have a standard. Your standard is just trash anyway. But I find it interesting that Mr. Capturing Christianity, he didn't want to play this part. Because the argument was not, oh, well, Protestants, we got a problem because we're not accepting Marian apparitions. So maybe we should consider becoming Catholic. And I saw where what's his name? Not William. Sam Shamoon did a whole video. Oh, Protestant is over. Protestantism is over. It's dead. I'm just like, man, I'm just scratching my head right now.
Bruh.
I'm like, oh my goodness. And like I said, I know I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I know it. But you're not going to tell me that we just all watched the same video and the conclusion that you came to was that Sean McDowell and William Lane Craig said that, you know what? I guess that's kind of a conundrum, because if we accept the resurrection of Christ, then that means that, we might as well accept the Marian apparitions. Let me tell you why we don't accept the Marian apparitions. Because those Marian apparitions do not point back to Christ. The resurrection was something that was already prophesied since Genesis, since the book of Genesis. That was something that was prophesied of how Christ was going to defeat death. Even when you go to like Isaiah, I think, Isaiah 52, Isaiah 53. We see all types of scriptures that point back to, especially the crucifixion of Christ. And then there's other scriptures that point back to his resurrection, you know, the risen Savior, all of that stuff. So therefore, when it actually happened, this pointed back to what the ancient Israelites had already believed in the first place. This is stuff that was already written in the scriptures. This just wasn't just some magic show of Christ just appearing to these people. And not only that, he appeared in full body. He didn't appear in some shining light. He didn't appear as a dancing sun. He came back in body. Because here's the thing. If Mary is bodily assumed into heaven, where she sits next to Christ, making intercession between us and him, full body, full flesh, then how come she's only popping up as beams of light? How come she's not showing up in flesh and blood? Because remember, we was reading through the glories of Mary. And according to the glories of Mary, she's omnipotent. And she has all authority in heaven and on earth. And you mean to tell me that somebody who has all authority in heaven and on earth, and who was fully bodily assumed into heaven, flesh and blood, that she cannot come back, flesh and blood, just like Jesus did? But, yeah, just a dumb Protestant. That's all I am. Because the Roman Catholics, they're the smart ones, y'all. They are the smart ones. We just, you know, just dumb Protestants who've turned our brains on to actually be like, oh, hold on, let's think about this stuff. Let's think about this stuff for a moment. Mary got all of the attributes of Jesus, sitting next to Jesus, fully body, flesh, blood, all of that. And she cannot come back in flesh and blood. She got to show up as a beam of light, and she got to be crying oil and blood and statues and stuff. She got to show up as condensation in glass windows. She can't come back as flesh and blood like Christ, but she's omnipotent, like the glories of Mary say. And the glories of Mary say that whatever she asks, God obeys. So whatever she commands God to do, God obeys that. You see why we have problems, y'all? And again, the biggest question is, what is the purpose of Mary showing up? To fulfill prophecy? What prophecy shows that Mary is going to die, she's going to be fully resurrected like Jesus, and then she's going to come back and appear to other people? Hey, thank you guys for watching the video. Go ahead and hit that like button. And if you like this particular content, hit that subscribe button as well if you have not done so. Also, check out this most recent video that I've done right here, or check out some of these other videos that I've done concerning the same topic. All right, you guys have a blessed day.